Mr. Secretary, thanks very much for joining me here in the Situation Room. I just want to get your quick reaction, first of all, to this latest deadly Russian strike on this civilian area right in the city center of Kramatorsk, killing people, injuring a lot of people. No military targets nearby at all, just trying to create terror and havoc.
Sure, Wolf, it's horrible. It's been going on for 16 months now, right? We forget that in the early days of this conflict, Putin was bombing maternity hospitals and daycare centers, and they were executing people in the streets. Look, there are war crimes that have been committed, continue to be committed, and at some point in time, Russians will be held accountable.
Putin personally?
Putin will be held accountable.
So he should be held for war crimes?
Absolutely.
All right, let's talk a little bit about what's going on right now. Do you think that this Wagner mutiny, as it's being called, is going to affect Putin's war in Ukraine?
Yes. I mean, at the tactical level, it has the impact of taking a very capable player off the battlefield of Ukraine. I mean, over the past 16 months, it's been the Wagner Group has been the only Russian entity, if you will, that was able to accomplish anything by seizing Bakhmut. Now, it was a Pyrrhic victory. They did it at great cost, but they were still effective. Now they're off the battlefield. At the same time, Russian troops, most of whom I think at this point must be conscripts, have to be asking themselves, what am I fighting for? They look back, they see all the mayhem happening in Moscow. I'm sure the words that Prigozhin uttered about the war being unnecessary, about it being Putin being fooled, about the generals and oligarchs using it to plunder Ukraine has to resonate with them as well, in addition to the Russian people. So I think it undermines Russian morale and readiness on the battlefield. But we'll see, right? The counteroffensive needs to play itself out.
The U.S. Defense Department announced today another huge U.S. military package for Ukraine, including, among other things, mine-clearing equipment. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I read that. Bangalore torpedoes, very important to use when you're up against fixed defenses. The Russians have had 6-7 months to build defenses all along that 600-mile or so front line. This is a tough operation. Breaching an enemy obstacle is very difficult to do. It's difficult for the United States Army. And so you have forces right now, the Ukrainians, who have Western equipment, they have Western training, but the Russians have had a lot of time to prepare.
The former president, Donald Trump, and you were his defense secretary, he said once again today he could settle this war in 24 hours. What's your reaction to that?
That's absurd. Look, the only person that could settle this war in 24 hours would be Vladimir Putin. If you were to come out today and say, it was a huge mistake, I'm withdrawing all of Russia's troops, and we'll talk about next steps, he is the only person that could end this war right now.
If Putin made that decision, he doesn't look like he's making that decision, but that would end the war. If he just said, let's get out of Ukraine and let that country do what it wants to do. This CNN audio, this audio of Trump talking about highly confidential, top secret information with his group over at Mar-a-Lago or at his country club in New Jersey. These were all very, very highly confidential, top secret documents talking specifically about the possibility of a war option against Iran for whatever reason. Does that audio, you've heard the audio now, what's your reaction to that? Because it's really disturbing that a former president would be sharing this kind of top secret information with people who don't have security clearances.
It does not surprise me. It shocks me. If true, if all the allegations are true, it's very irresponsible and dangerous. And the description of it, first of all, didn't add up to me. Some time ago, it was discussed that it was a 4-page document. That's not what we ever presented to President Trump. When he asked for options, we would come and present options, usually on a single big sheet of paper we would call a placemat, where we would outline different options based on varying degrees of difficulty and the effects it would have. And it was classified, of course. That's what we would typically present. So I'm curious as to what this document is. And to me, that's the key question, because so much circulates about this document, what it means, how classified it was. I think we need to see what that was.
Yeah, I'm sure at some point we probably will. But it's very disturbing that a former president could be sharing this kind of information about potential war plans against Iran with people who don't have national security clearances.
Well, absolutely. I mean, right now there's a young airman from the Massachusetts National Guard who's been charged with Espionage Act because he took unauthorized documents, classified documents, he retained them, and then he shared the information. And he's being held in, I think, a court up in Boston right now.
Yeah, very, very disturbing indeed. Mr. Secretary, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you, Wolf.
Mark Esper, thank you.